Last week, the rap world was stunned to learn in a press conference held by his lawyer that Eazy-E had been admitted to Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles and diagnosed as suffering from full-blown AIDS.
Rap singer Eazy-E has lost his battle with AIDS just 10 days after revealing that he had the disease.
An image of Eazy-E had been published in what was referred to as the deathbed edition of the Hip Hop Connection magazine in 1995, which had appeared to show Eazy-E looking in a deteriorated state prior to his passing. Fans had been duped into believing that it was one of the last images ever captured of Eazy-E, but the image had actually come from 1992 with Eazy-E appearing in prosthetics in order to promote his album Temporary Insanity. Eazy-E had been placed in prosthetics during the photo shoot to make his appearance look as if it was degenerating from the side effects of insanity. The Temporary Insanity album had been entirely scrapped by Eazy-E, being after Dr. Dre's disc called Dre Day, and Eazy-E instead had released this on Dr. Dre 187 Arm Killer. The Hip Hop Connection magazine had one of the unreleased degenerative photos of Eazy in prosthetics released in an issue after his death, which had become to have been known as the Deathbed Edition. The modified image of an unhealthy looking Eazy-E surrounded by a bed of flowers had duped fans into believing that the image had been captured just prior to Eazy-E's passing in 1995. The magazine had purposefully used the modified degenerative state of Eazy-E being for marketing and promotion purposes to make it seem as if the magazine had one of the last photos ever captured of Eazy-E, which in fact was not the case. Audio of Eazy-E, which was one of the very last ones before his passing when he was still able to speak, had been cryptically hidden by his group Bone Thugs and Harmony in an eerie seance-esque type manner, being within one of their album's pamphlets. In this video, we're going to take a look into the last days of Eazy-E, including the different theories which had arose surrounding his passing, and the different types of media which had been captured before he had passed on. Eazy-E has become regarded as the godfather of gangster rap, both having a successful career in a group as well as a solo career. Eazy-E was from Compton in Los Angeles and became associated with the Kelly Park Compton Crips, along with other Crip sets in the early 1980s. The Southside Compton Crips were affiliated with Eazy-E's family, with previous shot caller of the Southside Compton Crips, Keefe D, who is now in court for the murder of Tupac Shakur, had claimed to have frequently visited Eazy-E's home in 1981 and 1982, being when Eazy-E was 18 years old, as Keefe D had alleged that Eazy-E's mother was allowing the house to be used as a cookhouse, being during America's crack epidemic of the 1980s. Eazy-E had been introduced into selling narcotics, with there being several different stories about how he had become involved in the criminal underworld. Some sources claim Eazy-E had started selling at the early age of 11, being in 1975, after his cousin had introduced him to the game. Eazy-E's former business associate Jerry Heller had claimed that Eazy-E had told him that he had begun after dropping out of high school at the age of 16 in 1980 and had introduced his cousin to the illicit activity. Eazy-E had amassed $250,000 in cash being from the illicit activity by 1986 and had wanted to become a financier for the music industry. This was after Eazy-E had quit selling in 1986. Being after his cousin who he had introduced to the game had been murdered. Eazy-E, in an interview with Keith Murrow for BAM magazine in April of 1989, had spoken on why he had quit dealing, saying, quote, "Because I seen that it wasn't really worth it. It wasn't worth my life. My cousin got killed. It really wasn't worth it, so I got out of it. I figured I could do something right for a change instead of something wrong," unquote. Eazy-E had started Ruthless Records in 1986 and had been looking for connections within the music industry to help with launching the label. Jerry Heller was a prominent music manager who had been in Hollywood since the 1960s, and in the 1980s he began to represent hip-hop acts after he had been made aware of the talent which was at Macola Records after being informed by Maury Alexander, who he had a management partnership deal with. Macola Records of Hollywood had a distribution deal with Crew Cut Records, which was owned by Alonzo Williams. Crew Cut Records had several different groups under it, such as the World Class Wrecking Crew with Dr. Dre and DJ Yella, along with the group Criminals in Action with Ice Cube. Jerry Heller, after being made aware of Macola Records by Maury Alexander, had gone down there to scout talent and then signed management deals with Ice Cube, Dr. Dre and DJ Yella. Eazy-E, through trying to make connections in the music industry, had paid Alonzo Williams $750 to meet Jerry Heller, being in March of 1987. Eazy-E proposed a business deal to Jerry Heller, to help with launching Ruthless Records. Eazy-E had owned the label with an 80% stake, while Jerry Heller had taken 20%, but would later have gone on to have been discovered as manipulating artist contracts in order to gain a larger portion of revenue from the artists on Ruthless. Jerry Heller had invested $250,000 into the company, and the acts from Crew Cut Records, who Jerry Heller was managing, had then been released to join Ruthless Records. Ruthless Records now had a producing team of Dr. Dre, DJ Yella and Arabian Prince, while Ice Cube had acted as a writer. Eazy-E had pitched an idea to them of a song called Boys in the Hood, which was created in Eazy-E's vision. A demo of the song was made with Ice Cube creating a reference track, which Eazy-E had then pitched to an East Coast New York rap group, but they had turned the song down. Eazy-E was then talked into performing the single himself by Dr. Dre, and Dr. Dre had revealed that Eazy-E's studio sessions could take days at a time to complete projects, as Eazy-E would record his raps word by word as he didn't know how to rap. Footage from one of Eazy-E's studio sessions shows him getting frustrated with repeatedly messing up, while he was being produced and given direction by Dr. Dre.
Now I wanna turn up my Now I wanna turn up
73 take.
We only got two tomorrow, that's alright.
Boys in the Hood was then released as Eazy-E's first single under Ruthless Records, with it being distributed by Macola Records. The Ruthless Records artists then formed the rap group NWA, with the original group consisting of Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube and Arabian Prince. NWA released a 3-track extended play distributed by Macola Records, with the EP being titled NWA. The EP contains songs such as Dope Man and 8 Ball. Eazy-E claimed the song Dope Man was inspired by his former life of crime. NWA's first unauthorized album was a compilation album which had been released by Macola Records in November of 1987, with the album being called NWA and the Posse. The album was to capitalize off the rising NWA, with it being a re-release of the NWA EP along with the Boys in the Hood single, with it then containing songs from artists of Macola Records' library such as the DOC of the Feel Fresh crew. After the unauthorized album was released, Ruthless Records had left Macola Records and got a new distribution deal with Priority Records. During this time in 1988, MC Ren and DJ Yella had joined NWA, and the DOC had worked as an associate, being on the writing team of Ruthless. NWA released their first official album in August of 1988 called Straight Outta Compton, with the album being certified as selling 1 million copies in 11 months. Eazy-E released a solo album called Easy Does It 3 months after Straight Outta Compton, with the solo album selling 2 million records. From 1988 to 1989, both Arabian Prince and Ice Cube had left NWA and Ruthless, being due to royalty disputes. Ice Cube had made the diss track No Vaseline, saying that they were being financially screwed by Jerry Heller. Dr. Dre had met Suge Knight in 1991, who was acting as a bodyguard to people in the industry, such as Bobby Brown and the DOC. Dr. Dre and Suge Knight had planned to start a record label called Death Row Records, but Dr. Dre was still under contract with Ruthless. 2 incidents had taken place in 1991 between Suge Knight and Ruthless Records regarding the artist contracts. The first had been when Suge Knight and Compton MOB Pyru member Mob James, along with 3 others, had gone to Ruthless Records' office, and Mob James had flashed his gun at the security guard in order to let Suge Knight into Jerry Heller's office. Suge Knight had received a check from Jerry Heller, along with a copy of several of the artist's contracts, including Dr. Dre, Misha Lay and the DOC. Suge Knight had then taken these contracts to Solo Records boss Dick Griffey in order to read over and reveal the financial situation of the artist's contracts. The contracts revealed the artists were only making 2 cents per copy sold on Ruthless, meaning they were only making 20 grand for when a project had gone gold. The original price for NWA's vinyls were $4.44, while cassettes were between $8 and $12. These were the markup prices from the record stores who would purchase for $2 or $3 lower, being based on the demand. Distribution companies would act as wholesalers, containing stock of copies being from the master records, which would come from the labels, which in the 90s would go on to be pressed in the form of vinyls and cassettes. This stock of the music would then be sold from wholesalers, being the distributors, going to the music superstores, with some of the largest at the time being Tower Records, Woolworths, Warehouse Music, and HMV. Retail markup then occurs with products, which is the difference between the wholesale cost and the selling price. NWA's vinyls were selling at $4.44, so they would have been purchased at wholesale from distributors for around $2, while cassettes would have a higher markup as they would cost more to buy from distributors, being around $5 to buy, therefore being sold at around $8 to $12 in retail. Straight Outta Compton had sold 1 million copies in 11 months, which had generated between $4 to $12 million in revenue for the record stores and around $2 to $8 million in wholesale revenue with the distributors of Priority, which would then be split with Ruthless Records, where the distribution deals would usually be an 80-20 split, meaning Ruthless Records had bagged between $1.6 million and $6.4 million in revenue. Ruthless Records was then an 80-20 split between Eazy-E and Jerry Heller, therefore Eazy-E made between $1.2 million and $5.1 million, while Jerry Heller had made between $320,000 to $1.2 million in revenue, being from the Straight Outta Compton album. Ruthless artists were getting 2 cents for every copy of the album sold, and were also given $75,000 as a signing bonus, being for signing the contract, which paid 2 cents for every copy sold. Ice Cube refused to sign the contract and had left the group shortly after. The contracts were also forwarding the artist's publishing money to Jerry Heller, with Suge Knight revealing in his Collect Call podcast that Jerry Heller was being included as a talent in the contracts in order to usurp publishing money, as when filing the paperwork, it would say written, recorded and music by Eazy-E and Jerry Heller, therefore Heller receiving a portion of the publishing money which didn't belong to him. This had been the reason why Ice Cube and Arabian Prince had left the group. Suge Knight, after getting the contracts from Jerry Heller, now needed release papers signed to have the artist extricated from Ruthless Records. In April of 1991, Dr. Dre had told Eazy-E to meet him at Solar Records offices, which was owned by Dick Griffey. When Eazy-E had arrived, Dr. Dre was not there, but Suge Knight instead with Bloods. Eazy-E was forced into signing release papers but had provided a fake signature. Jerry Heller had called ex-Israeli soldier Mike Klein after this incident and had hired him as security against Suge Knight in order to aid in Ruthless Records' battle against Suge Knight's Compton Pyrus. Eazy-E had Dr. Dre signed to an exclusive producer-artist deal for Ruthless Records, which had lasted for 6 years after leaving Ruthless. Suge Knight revealed in his Collect Call podcast hosted by Breakbeat Media that he had seen the details of the deal, which entitled Eazy-E to 25% of all of Dr. Dre's earnings for 6 years, which would be collected through Death Row's distributors at Interscope, as Suge Knight refused to pay it personally. Dr. Dre left NWA and Ruthless Records in early 1992 in order to join Suge Knight and create Death Row Records. Eazy-E then sued Death Row Records in claiming to have had artists stolen from Ruthless, which had made it difficult for Death Row Records to find a distributor, as they had been turned down by Sony and others due to the lawsuit. Jimmy Iovine of Interscope Records then agreed to a deal with Suge Knight for a 50-50 split, where Interscope would get Death Row's music distributed by Priority Records in acting as a middleman. After Death Row Records had gotten distribution by Priority in 1992, Ruthless Records had then left Priority. Eazy-E began working on his second solo album called Temporary Insanity in 1992. Eazy-E had done a promotional piece for the album in the Hip Hop Connection magazine, where several feature pieces were shot which aligned with the theme of the album, such as Eazy-E in a straitjacket and using prosthetics on Eazy-E's face in order to make his features look deteriorated, in line with going insane. Eazy-E had scrapped the album after Dr. Dre had released the Eazy-E diss track called Dre Day, being in May of 1993. Death Row Records, who had released the music video, had an Eazy-E impersonator depicted as a homeless person. AJ Johnson played Sleazy-E in the Dre Day music video, who had also played a fiend in the movie Friday. Eazy-E responded with Real Compton City G's, with this being the radio version of the name. Eazy-E hired AJ Johnson to play the character in his video to prove that they were not the same person to regain integrity over the parody, but AJ Johnson quit the role after being threatened by Suge Knight, who had pulled a gun on him. Eazy-E and Dr. Dre continuously dissed each other, being in interviews throughout 1993, with them both claiming each one of them was not a gangster. Eazy-E would repeatedly address the fashion Dr. Dre had used while he was in the World Class Wrecking Crew in the 1980s, and how himself, Eazy-E, was the first to promote a gangster lifestyle, with Dr. Dre then following on years later.
You remember that group, the World Class Wrecking Crew, that wore lipstick, lace, biker shorts? You could tell where he originally came from. See, if you look back at me, my beginning, I did the Boys in the Hood. So I was cruising down the street in my 6'4". So it's 93 now, and Dre is all of a sudden cruising down the street in his 6'4" now. So I figured he like a 93 wannabe.
Eazy-E had more street credibility in Compton from being a former member of the Kelly Park Crips, and former Southside Compton shot caller Keefe D had claimed that Eazy-E had all of the Compton Crips behind him. Eazy-E, after scrapping the Temporary Insanity album, had then released his song Dr. Dre 187 I'm Killer, being on October 19th, 1993. Eazy-E at this same time in late 1993 had signed Cleveland, Ohio rap group Bone Thugs and Harmony, who had gotten a contract with Ruthless Records and released the EP Creepin' on a Come Up in 1994. Eazy-E would soon to have been diagnosed to have been in the last stage of AIDS in early 1995. Eazy-E on February 24th, 1995 was in a recording session with BG Knockout of the Nutty Block Crips. BG Knockout had described how Eazy-E had kept continuously running out of breath while trying to record and had to frequently step out of the studio to catch his breath. During this time, Eazy-E's lungs had collapsed. Eazy-E was then admitted into the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles with a violent cough. Eazy-E was diagnosed to have been in the last stage of HIV/AIDS. Once the disease is in its final stage, it then takes upward of 3 years to be fatal. This could possibly mean that Eazy-E had contracted the disease prior to 1992. Eazy-E had announced his illness in a public statement on March 16th, 1995. The statement read by his attorney Ron Sweeney had said, quote, "I'm not religious, but wrong or right, that's me. I'm not saying this because I'm looking for a soft cushion wherever I'm heading. I just feel that I've got thousands and thousands of young fans that have to learn about what's real when it comes to AIDS," unquote. Eazy-E claimed he did not know how he'd contracted the illness, but had added in the statement, quote, "Before Tamika I had other women. I have 7 children by 6 different mothers. Maybe success was too good to me," unquote. This part in Eazy-E's statement was incorrect, as Eazy-E had 11 children with 8 different women, which would make people believe that the statement was not written by Eazy-E. None of Eazy-E's known partners or his children had ever contracted the disease. Eazy-E had revealed on the Howard Stern show that he had never once protected himself, and Howard Stern had asked him was he not concerned about catching diseases, but he offered no concern in his reply to the question. AIDS is believed to have formed in chimpanzees in Central Africa, which had then spread to the United States, with the first cases appearing in 1981, which had led to the AIDS outbreak and the AIDS epidemic of the 1980s. There has been much speculation about the origin of AIDS, with the 2 most popularized arguments coming from William Cooper and Robert Wilner. Robert Wilner was an American doctor who was scrutinized for his ideas on the AIDS virus. He had released a book in 1994 called Deadly Deception, which had claimed that AIDS was not transmitted through being with someone who carried the virus, and claimed HIV did not cause AIDS. He had made various alternative claims about AIDS and went through the drastic extent of jabbing himself with the blood of a patient with HIV, being during a televised press conference, in an argument that he would not become infected with the illness. He had followed up in the next month by providing negative test results showing that he did not contract the virus. Robert Wilner's work was a study of Peter Duesberg, who had published a paper in 1987 arguing that HIV was not the cause of AIDS. Both have been labelled as falling under AIDS denialism. William Cooper's book Behold a Pale Horse was a popular book in the hip-hop community, with his Wikipedia page reading, quote, "Cooper's writing holds enduring popularity in hip-hop, being referenced by artists including Public Enemy, Tupac Shakur and Jay-Z," unquote. William Cooper in July of 1990 had wrote an article on what he claimed to have witnessed about the origins of the AIDS virus while serving as a US Naval Intelligence Briefing Team member during the Vietnam War. William Cooper claimed to have been briefed on papers which detailed what he claimed was called Project MK Naomi under Operation Global 2000. Cooper claimed to have seen documents which claimed Project MK Naomi under what was called Operation Global 2000 was an initiative began by the US Department of Defense as early as a study carried out in 1957. Cooper claimed the documents had noted that a microbe labeled as alternative-free had been created by scientists under a study in Huntsville, Alabama in 1957. Cooper claimed that the documents had stated that under this continued project, funding was obtained from the US Congress under HB 15090 of 1969, where $10 million was given to the Department of Defense's 1970 budget to build along the lines of alternative-free and increase further development. Cooper had claimed the documents read that under Project MK Naomi, with the newly appointed $10 million budget, the Special Operations Division scientists at Fort Detrick, Maryland, had continued down the initiative of Alternative Free, which had become fully developed in 1977. William Cooper claimed this project was then believed to have been linked to the AIDS epidemic which began in 1981. Freddie Mercury and Eazy-E were some of the biggest celebrities to have contracted the AIDS virus. These celebrity deaths correlate with what William Cooper had claimed to have seen in the documents, as he had alleged Operation Global 2000 under Project MK Naomi using the development of Alternative Free had allegedly, according to what William Cooper had seen in the documents, had carried out studies of its effects on African Americans and LGBT. William Cooper has been labelled as a conspiracy theorist by Wikipedia, with the entry also listing the claims he had made regarding AIDS, with it also reporting on how in 2000, South Africa's Minister of Health had received criticism for distributing a chapter discussing the theory being to senior South African government officials. Eazy-E had died rather rapidly after announcing his diagnosis, as he had passed away on the 26th of March 1995, being a month after he had been diagnosed with AIDS. Bone Thugs-n-Harmony of Ruthless Records had released an album called E1999 Eternal, being 4 months after Eazy-E's death. In the CD booklet of the album, it included what had become known as the Ouija board map design of Cleveland, which held a riddle within it. The riddle gave a toll-free number when solved, which when called played the final audio recording ever captured of Eazy-E, which had been taken when he was still able to talk before passing away.
Playing the game. Y'all niggas starve. The game is designed for them to win. You think I'm lying? Here's the pin. They already got a number reserved for your ass. They want you to enroll in their institution so they can pimp you with their new form of
After Eazy-E had passed, Hip Hop Connection magazine had used unreleased pictures from Eazy-E's 1992 promo shoot, where prosthetics were used to make his appearance look deteriorated, and he was placed with a bed of flowers surrounding him, with the cover becoming known as the Deathbed Issue, as it duped fans into believing that it was a photo of Eazy-E on his deathbed. Eazy-E's passing remained mysterious to his fans and loved ones, as they couldn't accept him passing so suddenly. This first theory, including Suge Knight, is the most popular one, so we will take a look at it first. Suge Knight, while on a Jimmy Kimmel show in 2003, had commented on having bullets infected with AIDS, which give people a slow death, and had called it an Eazy-E thing. Following his comments on the Jimmy Kimmel show, rumours had spread like wildfire that Suge Knight somehow was the person who had infected Eazy-E with the disease. Former Death Row Records artist Crooked Eye, who was with Suge Knight at the Jimmy Kimmel taping, claimed in the Hulu series The Mysterious Death of Eazy-E that he had spoke to Suge Knight about his claims on the show afterwards, and Suge Knight allegedly had said to him that he felt as if there was foul play involved in Eazy-E's death. Eazy-E's son in 2015 claimed he believed Suge Knight was responsible for his father's death, and had posted the Jimmy Kimmel interview on Instagram with the caption reading, quote, "I've been known my pops was killed. His death never added up to what people have always said. Maybe they think we're idiots, blind to the truth. I don't know," unquote. Ice Cube, while on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast in 2023, had been asked about the rumours of Suge Knight allegedly getting Eazy-E infected, and had said, quote, "How would Suge do that? Now if he was unconscious, and if he didn't know he got poked, then the conspiracy lives on," unquote. The theory goes as far as arguing that Suge Knight had gone through the extent of having needles tainted at an acupuncture treatment centre, which were then poked into Eazy-E, giving him the disease unknowingly. These claims went viral after former Ruthless rapper Frost had stated them in a 2015 documentary for the movie Straight Outta Compton. Frost, who had signed to Ruthless Records in 1995, had said, quote, "I don't want to say that name because it's the devil's name, but another person in rap. If you know your history of rap, West Coast rap, you know who I'm saying. I was told even in my last conversation from Eazy not to even talk to that man. Not only that, but I think that they really had a stronghold of giving him tainted needles with the AIDS virus in him with acupuncture. Unquote. Some believe he is talking about Suge Knight in these claims, while others speculate that he is talking about Jerry Heller. Frost claimed Eazy-E began getting acupuncture after getting hurt on a quad bike in Honda Valley in Santa Barbara. Eazy-E had been beefing with Suge Knight and Death Row Records over Dr. Dre since 1991. Suge Knight and his goons from the Compton MOB Pyrus were believed to have roughed up Eazy-E to sign release papers in 1991 after Dr. Dre had tricked Eazy-E into being ambushed. Eazy-E then sued Death Row Records in 1992 for racketeering, and it became the first time the RICO law was associated to the music industry. Eazy-E in a suit had sued Death Row Records along with Sony and Solar Records, with the suit claiming Sony interfered with contractual agreements by assisting Solar Records in helping Death Row Records, whose artists were contractually under Ruthless. The lawsuit also claimed Eazy-E was forced under duress to sign releases for the artists in the offices of Solar when he was confronted by Suge Knight and several others wielding baseball bats. Suge Knight had allegedly pretended to have kidnapped Jerry Heller and showed Eazy-E the addresses of Heller's family members, telling him that they would be murdered if he didn't sign the papers.
And that they were holding me hostage under those kinds of duress, got him to sign releases for Dr. Dre.
If you force somebody to sign something, it'd be all like this.
How do you know that?
How I know that?
You done it before?
No, I've never done it before, but common sense.
Jerry Heller, after becoming aware of the incident, began to carry guns and sleep with one in his bedside cabinet. He also hired the services of the Jewish Defense League and ex-Israeli soldier Mike Klein to provide protection from Suge Knight. Eazy-E disrupted Suge Knight getting a distribution deal with Sony in 1992, being due to the lawsuit, which led to Dr. Dre's 1992 album The Chronic to be postponed until Interscope had offered a distribution deal through Priority. Suge Knight interfered with Eazy-E's Real Compton City G's Dr. Dre diss, being in terms of the music video, by threatening the Sleazy E character played by AJ Johnson so he didn't appear in the video, after making an appearance in the Dre Day video, being a diss against Eazy-E. Eazy-E in his diss against Dr. Dre had said, Dre Day only meant Eazy's payday. This was in reference to Eazy-E having Dr. Dre signed as an exclusive artist and producer, being entitled to 25% of all of Dr. Dre's earnings for 6 years. Suge Knight revealed in his Collect Call podcast that he refused to pay for it out of Death Row's accounts, and would make Jimmy Iovine pay it from Interscope's money off of Priority. Suge Knight in his podcast revealed how after Eazy-E had died in 1995, Interscope rushed in to pressure Eazy-E's wife Tamika, who had become his estate holder, into signing a release of the contract by offering her a new smaller deal, which they then didn't follow up on after getting the release. Jerry Heller in 2013 had revealed in an interview with the Murder Master Music Show that Eazy-E had planned to kill Suge Knight, and had claimed he was able to talk Eazy out of it, but then claimed he later regretted it. The theory alleges that due to the beef between them, Suge Knight went to the extent of tainting Eazy-E's acupuncture needles with the disease to give him what Suge Knight called on a Jimmy Kimmel show a slow death. As Eazy-E had been diagnosed with being in the last phase of the disease, which reaches its fatal point after 3 years, this would indicate it allegedly happening in 1992, which would be during the time of the lawsuit when Eazy-E was disrupting Dr. Dre's The Chronic album from being released by affecting Suge Knight's label Death Row Records from being able to get a distributor, being due to the lawsuit Eazy-E had filed. The Suge Knight theory is one of the most famous ones, but seems far-fetched due to the amount of effort which would need to go into infecting Eazy-E while doing it undetected. This next theory is one which Eazy-E's daughter along with artist BG Knockout believe, which is that Eazy-E was allegedly taken out by what has been termed as Star Whackers. Actor Randy Quaid was a main person who had brought the term Star Whackers into the public eye. In 2011, actor Randy Quaid had claimed he and his family had to flee to Canada due to what he had called Star Whackers. Randy Quaid claimed these so-called Star Whackers are said to exist in Hollywood and are made up of Hollywood attorneys, managers, accountants and estate planners who, according to Quaid, go about with preying on the stars that they manage in an attempt to extort money from them, with going as far as conspiring to kill the celebrities to capitalize on their death. He went on to claim that the Star Whackers have connections into the legal system, where they're able to bring about false charges and prosecution to then have greater control over the star's assets while they are entangled with legal trouble. Jerry Heller revealed in an interview that just prior to Eazy-E's death, Ruthless Records accounts were pulling in $10 million in revenue each month. Jerry Heller's claims mean that Ruthless Records would have been making $120 million a year, being when Eazy-E had passed away in 1995. CelebrityNetWorth.com backed these claims of the financial accounts of Ruthless, appearing to show that it had been making $10 million a month. All this money had soon gone somewhere else after Eazy-E had passed away, as in the same year of 1995 being in December, just 9 months after Eazy-E's passing, his $1.1 million Calabasas mansion, which was left for his wife, had been foreclosed due to there being a lack of finances. Ruthless Records making $10 million a month, with Eazy-E earning 80% of the money, would give him $8 million a month, earning $96 million a year. CelebrityNetWorth.com claimed poor spending habits were the cause of his fortune being lost after death, but others, including his daughter, feel that Star Whackers had been allegedly behind his stolen fortune. Eazy-E's daughter had launched and starred in the 2021 TV series The Mysterious Death of Eazy-E, where she had claimed that Eazy-E was isolated in a hospital, and not only was there no autopsy carried out, but the family were not given any medical records. BG Knockout revealed in a Vlad TV interview that Eazy-E had left a large fortune for his kids, but they're unable to claim it due to Eazy-E's signature being placed on a trust, giving his estate to Tamika Woods, who had married him on his deathbed, becoming Tamika Wright. The trust document, which contained Eazy-E's signature during his final days, had designated Tamika Woods and Eazy's former attorney Ronald L. Sweeney as co-trustees of the estate, taking ownership of Ruthless Records. Eazy-E's kids were going through the process of arbitration with Tamika Wright, who had married Eazy-E on his deathbed in the hospital and had inherited his estate. BG Knockout, in another Vlad TV interview with his brother Draystar, who had wrote for Eazy-E, both had claimed that they feel as if Eazy-E did not die from AIDS. They claim that they feel as if the statement, which was read by the attorney, may have been forged, as Eazy-E was not in a healthy enough state to be able to convey a message to the attorneys for a statement. They both visited Eazy-E in the hospital and claimed he had a respirator which was breathing for him, which had prevented him from being able to talk, as he couldn't breathe on his own. BG Knockout, in a separate Vlad TV interview, had claimed Hollywood attorney Ron Sweeney was allegedly complicit in the case, along with Tamika Wright. BG Knockout revealed that Eazy-E had not signed a marriage certificate with the marriage which was carried out on his deathbed, as he was unable to write due to being in critical condition. Instead, Eazy-E's name had been typed on a marriage certificate by a third party. BG Knockout also claimed that Eazy-E's death certificate does not mention AIDS, but claims that he had died from cardiac arrest. He claimed the death certificate did not include cardiac arrest due to the complication of AIDS, but instead said death due to cardiac arrest. BG Knockout claimed in a Vlad TV interview that the written statement had gotten the amount of kids wrong in stating that it was 7 when it was actually 11, indicating that it was written by someone else, with this part of the statement specifically mentioning Tamika. A final statement was released which was claimed to have been that of Eazy-E, but the statement was not in Eazy-E's handwriting. Doctors claimed Eazy-E was unconscious on a respirator from March 15th until his death on the 26th, being 11 days later. This then argues of how he could have consciously made the decision of marriage, as he did not physically sign a marriage certificate and also had his signature on a trust document, which made Tamika Wright and the attorney co-trustees of the estate. Tamika Wright and the attorney Ron Sweeney were then the only two people who had access to the Ruthless Records company bank account, which was believed to have been generating $10 million a month. Rumors circulated in the music industry that the marriage and the trust documents were allegedly orchestrated by Tamika Woods and attorney Ronald Sweeney to help Motown Records gain control of Ruthless. Tamika Woods worked for 6 years as an assistant to the Motown chairman Clarence Avant, and Ronald Sweeney had acted as an attorney for him for over a decade. Alonzo Williams of Crew Cut Records, who had introduced Eazy-E to Jerry Heller, also claimed that he doesn't feel as if Eazy-E had died from AIDS. He had claimed in an interview with Comedy Hype that Jerry Heller had showed him what he believes were forged documents of Eazy-E's signature, which had been typed on instead of signed. The theory claims Eazy-E was not actually infected with HIV/AIDS, but rather died from a different illness which he had been infected with and or poisoned by, which made his health decline rapidly in a short amount of time, allegedly by people who wanted to profit off of his death. This theory online falls under AIDS denialism. In this video, we took a look into the case of Eazy-E and the fake lost photo which was released in the Hip Hop Connection magazine. The photo duped fans into believing it was one of the lost photos captured of Eazy-E, when it was in fact actually unreleased photos of him in prosthetics for his scrapped 1992 Temporary Insanity album. We'd also taken a look into the lost moments of Eazy-E's life and the various theories which have been put out there since his passing. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, smash the thumbs up button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and press that bell button so you can get all the future notifications for when I upload. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.